Question that we and questions that you all may have about today's agenda. We want to get this going on time. Buenos días a todos. Vamos a comenzar con nuestra reunión de hoy. If you can join us in dropping your name, affiliation in the chat, and we'll do introductions that way. For those of you who haven't met each other, acompáñenos a compartir su nombre, el nombre de su organización en la función del chat para que los que no lo hayan conocido a este momento puedan saber quién es. And do want to wish Teresa best of luck in her new chapter. She was sharing earlier that she's transitioning to another opportunity. Thank you for all your contributions to this effort. We really have appreciated you being part of this. Maria will be dropping the agenda packet in the chat, just as another reminder for you to follow along and have an opportunity to reference materials for today's meeting. And so we'll have that in there shortly, and if you don't see it already. But all right, well, let's jump in.
Buenos días.
Tenía una pregunta, Apolonio, comentario. Muy bien.
A ver, bueno, creo que no. A ver,
Ahorita María, lo que está compartiendo, María va a poner la agenda en el chat para que lo tengan también disponible allí en el chat y de esa manera también lo pueden acceder. All right, but before we jump in, I want to just give a quick reminder, refresher, if you will, from the last meeting where the collaborative, you all were supportive of the funding for this catalyst phase being bifurcated or split up in two ways where you're supporting the target sectors that this group previously chose as priorities of focus. And that funding is being generated into a bucket that's we're calling the job creating projects. And there's as the slide that you see in front of you shows, there's 2.1 million that is being allocated initially into that bucket. But there's also funding that you wanted to guarantee for topics that still have significant impact and value for Orange County, specifically for disinvested communities. And we'll talk about those projects in a bit, the community enhancing projects. But really quickly on the job creating projects. So, as the slide indicates, the main goal of trying to catalyze those projects is for the goal of increasing the availability of good paying jobs in your county and supporting the growth of the business community, the employers who have the potential to continue to expand and offer more employment opportunities. And those are the industries that you previously identified as a group: tourism and outdoor recreation, medtech, high-tech hardware. And some of this is aligned with the state's blueprint, which was released earlier this year, that gives a little bit of indication of where the state of California is also putting some of its efforts. And so a little bit of alignment there also is helpful for Orange County. But the projects really are focused on trying to create, catalyze, and really just spawn new activity with the private sector businesses and stimulate the creation of jobs that come with good paying wages so that more people in Orange County could take advantage and be qualified for those jobs and increase the prosperity potential in their households. And so, projects with the demonstration of having a positive impact on the climate alongside of its economic potential are also things that are considered when allocating these resources to proposals that were received. So just some background there in terms of that first bucket of job creating projects. These are some of the driving principles that have informed the selection of those funds, distribution of those funds. So we'll move on to the next slide, Jesse. And this is the other source of funding that has been set aside. And I want to take a second to really just commend you all as a collaborative. Not every region is continuing to put the value on community enhancing projects like you all are doing here and have set aside some funding specifically to support those projects that are still viewed by this collaborative as being really important to the quality of life of Orange County. And so the fact that you've elected to set aside funding to continue to support that part of the effort over the last few years is really something that you all should be proud of yourselves for and commend yourselves for continuing to elevate and prioritize those sort of projects as well uh, as you're focusing on your job creating, you're also not forgetting about your community enhancing. So kudos to you all for doing that. But as the slide here shows, these are projects that will continue to focus on things not exclusively, but offer resources to projects that are prioritizing housing, access to healthcare, childcare, climate adaptations. Um, these are projects that can also have a demonstrated ability to make a positive impact on Orange County when it relates to climate impacts. And this is one where you all as a collaborative uh, have direct say on how which projects and how these projects get funded and get spent. So something that I think you all will feel very um, good about being able to dictate in a democratic way, and we'll talk about that here shortly, of which projects get selected, which projects will have the most impact. And so we will talk a little about that in a second. And the selection process is something that has been given a lot of thought, and the there will be now focus for these projects. I'm sorry, these projects received a lot of requests for funding. You can see that a little over $5 million was requested for the this pot of the money. There's, I believe, 900,000 available. So you have to acknowledge that not all $5 million worth of requested resources for various projects are going to be fulfilled. But 900,000 will. The breakdown of how those proposals came in, you'll see that 9 proposals were submitted from the business, economic development, business association sector. Those of you who are involved in those groups, 8 proposals were submitted from the community-based organization, nonprofit sector groups in Orange County. There's 3 proposals that have a workforce and education component tied to them, and then there was 1 proposal that was submitted from a local government in Orange County. All 21, if I'm doing my math right, 21 of these proposals totaled that 5 million, but you won't be able to fulfill the full request with the initial phase of this funding. But there will be, as I understand in my conversations with the OCBC team, there are plans for a second round. There will be a requirement for projects that are not selected in this first initial 900,000 to be invited to resubmit their projects, and you can literally, recycle what you submitted during this first round and use it for the second round. So I share that to just let you know that if in the event that your project is not one of the ones selected in this initial round, hope is not lost. There will be another opportunity. So let's go to the next slide. And the action item that you'll see in your agenda for today, and we'll turn for, we will require someone to make a motion in a second to be able to open this poll. But the idea is that there will be a poll available to you that will open today at this meeting, and will be open through next Tuesday, April 1st, 5 p.m. You'll have the opportunity to make selections, your top 3 select projects based that are available to you on the poll, and you'll see those in a bit once we go through our action item. with your highest scored project in first place, your second project in second place will be your second highest, and then your third place project will be your third highest scored. And so the way that the rank choice will work is that the project that you select as your first place project will receive 5 points. The one you opt to select as your second place will get 3 points, and then third place will get 1 point. And so, there'll be a tally that'll be compiled based on everybody's votes. And what we are also want to reiterate here and strongly encourage you to consider is that, and this is an important point, so please keep this in mind, front and center. That you cannot vote for a project that you or your organization is directly involved in, and this is in alignment with the conflict of interest policy that this group agreed to several months ago in terms of how to keep this process fair, how to get the distribution of the money done in a transparent and equitable way where conflicts are not going to conflict with the process. And so in the event that you one of your three choices is a project that you are involved with or your organization is involved with, your whole ballot will be invalid. So not just the selection, one of the three selections on your ballot, the other two selections will be deemed invalid as well. So making that oversight or making that mistake will in a way penalize the other two people that you're voting for as well. So strongly encourage you to, as when the poll becomes available to you, keep that in mind. Do not vote for projects that you or your organization are involved with, because it will not just penalize your project, but the other two projects you would have been voting for on that ballot as well. The whole ballot will be invalid. So you'll have a few days beginning today to look at that poll and make your selections. And if there's a need for a follow-up poll in the event there's a tie or there's the polling and the tallying of the selections doesn't yield clear project selections, that poll will be released on Wednesday the 2nd and will be open through the end of the day next Friday, April 4th, 5 p.m. And so the goal is to exhaust all $900,000 that are available in this initial phase of the community engagement funding by awarding the funds to the highest voter, then the second highest project. We'll be going in that order until the 900,000 is exhausted. So we couldn't tell you here today how many projects will be awarded. It all depends on which projects come in that ranking order and how much each project requested until the 900,000 is exhausted. So once the poll closes, there'll be an opportunity to see how many projects were actually selected based on the available funding that is there right now. So I think before we go into, I think, an action item, we will allow for some discussion. If there are questions on the community enhancing process for the catalyst funding that we just described in the poll, let's offer some discussions and some questions from the rest of you. You can raise your hand or you can come off mute.
Jason, just to clarify, not questions about the process, drop those in the chat. It's about you having a dialogue about the proposals that are in front of you for the next 15 or 20 minutes.
Thank you, Jesse.
This is JJ from Cal State. I'm confused.
And I will share. Oh, I'm sorry, JJ. I was just going to clarify that the links to the community engagement project applications were shared with you last week. So the poll, hopefully this helps clarify some of your comments, JJ. The poll that you're going to engage with in the next few days is for the community engagement part of the funding. And then we'll be describing a little bit the projects that were selected for the job creating funding.
I think you just answered my question, and
Yeah.
I was I saw what Jesse wrote and I was trying to understand.
Yeah, so we,
Yeah.
you should
That
have
makes-
received, last week, the applications that were submitted for the community enhancing part of the funding, which is what the poll will focus on, is gonna invite all of you to choose the awardees, for the community engagement pot, the 900,000. The 2.1 million for the job creating is later in the agenda today, and, Jesse will, be providing us an update with that, but,
And if
that's,
you have questions about this process, please drop them in the chat. We have to leave this time open for you to discuss the proposals in front of you.
yeah, and what I want to also share is, strongly encourage you in this discussion, that you refrain from, advocating or speaking, in support of your own project, to not bias the discussion towards your project or your organization's project. Talk about projects that, are not related to you or your organization, and the merits of those other projects, just so that we keep the process as, limited on any potential conflict, and people are not biased by someone dominating the floor with advocacy about their own project.
Is just to clarify, the the projects that we have access to prior to this meeting were for the job creating projects, right? We don't have access to the community um projects yet, but yet those are the ones that we are going to be voting on by April 1st. Is that correct?
Let's say at this, Josefa, can you drop that in the chat for me to answer? But the
Oh.
answer is that was shared with you last week. Again, please open this. Unless there aren't any comments about the projects in front of you, we can do process questions, but I do want people to talk about the proposals that were in front of them.
Yeah, and I want to also, yeah, just remind you that email, that link should have went to you, last week with the projects. And then there was a meeting, an optional meeting on Tuesday that some of you attended, where, our team at OCBC went over the process in detail, and so that's the reason why we're trying to give an opportunity for discussion on the merits of the projects and not the process, first, because we did have a space on Tuesday where, folks were invited to come and opt in to talk about the process specifically. But to Jesse's point, if there aren't any substantive questions on the merits of the projects, we can take some process questions, but we want to give space the next, 20 or so minutes for comments and discussion on, the merits of the projects. Again, keeping in mind that you, refrain from speaking about your own project and discussing the projects of your peers.
Hey Ish, so I'm gonna drop in the chat the link to the community enhancing projects. But if they want to look at their email with all of the attachments, March 21st, Friday, that's when I sent the email regarding the community enhancing. Every link that they needed was available. I also sent a lot of email reminders, and then the job creating, which is the agenda item coming up next, that I sent on Monday night, if that helps.
And so the projects we want to give you space for right now are specifically the community enhancement projects, the ones you'll be, playing a direct role in selecting awardees for. And then we'll get later in the agenda, we'll talk about the other pot, which is the job creating. And just another quick note, the community enhancement projects, again, is a way to resource projects that are not directly aligned with the job creating bucket, per the guidelines of the state and its blueprint. But again, kudos to you all for continuing to value those projects and making space and setting aside funding to, resource those projects, because they're obviously important to all of you, and you've made a commitment to support them with financial resources. But any questions? Who wants to kick us off on a discussion of the merit of some of these projects, or why some of these projects stood out to you? The floor is open for you to come off mute or raise your hand.
Did anybody take a look at Project 13, which is the Tustin Heritage one?
Project 13, Kevin, the Tustin Heritage Project?
Yeah, so I had a question about their proposals. So it says the project will serve households between 30% AMI to 80% AMI. That's like a big range. How are, well, I don't know if anybody on here is familiar with it, but how are they judging that? Um, like, is it merely just income level?
Is there anybody here that is affiliated with the Tustin Heritage Project that can answer that question?
No, hey, no, we don't have the proposals here or the proposers here. You imagine logistically it'd be tough to have 20 to 50 people.
Understood.
So Kevin, I mean that's really for you to decide whether in their explanation whether that's satisfactory or not as you judge that project.
Okay.
Other questions, other comments from the group on projects that you see available there for you to select? Thank you, Kevin, for your question and for kicking us off. And, John, did we answer your question? I didn't circle back to you. Did we clarify what you initially flagged?
Yes, I just didn't exactly understand Jesse's post in
Gotcha.
the chat. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. Other questions, comments? Are there projects there that you need some clarifying information from potentially people who are here on the call who submitted? Any of you? Anything that stands out or you want to highlight or any concerns with a project? Maria,
The
did you want
other,
something?
yeah, Ish, what I'll do too is I'll drop in the chat where they can find the project phases in the NOFO packet and then where they can find the scoring criteria. We did review this information on Tuesday at the in-person meeting, but it'll help them so that when they're scoring, they go back and look at the criteria. And then the other thing I encourage you all is if you have any questions, feel free to email me directly. Over the weekend, I'll make myself available to ensure that I respond. Jesse and I will both be traveling to Sacramento on Tuesday, so I'll have limited access to my email, but I will do my best to respond before the deadline, before the poll closes.
Thank you, Maria. Any other
So
questions?
if there's no question, if there's no questions about the proposals in front of you or things you want to try to elevate, then, we could spend if there are questions about process, we have the next 5 minutes before we head into the next phase.
I had a quick question.
Any process questions? Oh, go ahead, Diana.
For not remembering right away, but was the healthcare industry, was that in one of the priority sectors? I'm noticing a lot of healthcare applications, and I thought those would be eligible for job creation if they are part of that priority industry.
Yeah, great question. Well, first one is because healthcare was in both. Obviously, one on the healthcare side is more focused on healthcare businesses or healthcare workforce versus healthcare treatment or accessibility, right? Culturally appropriate. There's that component. And then another thing is that we had to take them they decided, we said, please reach out to us if you have questions or confusion about which one you should do. But if they ultimately wanted to apply for the community enhancement, they did. As we mentioned, I never wanted to take an application off the board for you. We did that on the job creating side when they weren't eligible, but we didn't want you guys to decide that's not quite the right project for this. So I'm not gonna vote for it, but I didn't want to preemptively take proposals off your plate.
Good question, Diana. Thank you for elevating that. Any questions around process? Not just the merits of the projects or the choices you have, but on the process itself. Josefa?
Yeah, maybe I'll out myself and say that I did not review them yet, and so I will need to do that. And as I look at these folders, boy, they are dense. They've got lots of files. And so I wonder, just from a user standpoint, any tips as we go through this process? Because when I open those folders, I see a summary. The summary seems to have the most brief, but then you got to click in each of the coded folders to find the summary. And I'm assuming that could be one approach. So I'm just lifting it up in case others have tips because they went through this process already.
Thanks, Joseph.
But Yosef, if you want, we could also copy and batch all the summaries together.
That would be incredible.
We could do that as well. So we will have it in the individual one, but we can, Maria, so let's just right after this call, let's just batch all the summaries and put them in a summaries folder.
Would you agree, Jesse, that if we were unable to read everything in the folder, that's the most critical or helpful?
Yeah, I think that's why we did it. We understood. I think that would be the best way to get a sense of the project and also the budget, because budget's right. How much they're asking for might matter in this conversation as well. So Maria, we'll do that immediately after this call.
Thanks.
That would be awesome. Thank you very much, because it's been taking me a long time to get through some of these. So that would really speed up the process. Thank you.
I was going to add too, because the way I am right now with work, I'm all over the road and most of my work is being done on the phone. So the simpler you can break it down to where we can get into it without having to pull a laptop out, the better. So it's getting little bits and pieces off the iPhone right now. Thank you.
Well, thank
Great,
you.
thank you all for the feedback. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jesse Maria, for agreeing to make that adjustment. Peter, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is really more of an observation. As I look at these proposals, some of them, the budget amount is more than $900,000. And so if that's a first place selection, then, you know, the entirety of the award amount would be spent on that one project. And then there are a lot of projects that are much less than that are in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. So I'm thinking personally about, do I want to fund one big project or a bunch of little projects? And I'm trying to still decide as I review them, which of those voting strategies I'm going to use. Just a comment.
Thank you, Peter. Definitely things to consider for all of you as you're reviewing. Other comments or observations you want to share with your peers?
One last thing, I've been looking to try to check off all of the priorities that in the scoring that we were looking for. And so even if the project necessarily doesn't touch on every single one, like the one obviously I'm looking for is sustainability. There are certain projects that I feel set up great systems that could then lead to additional and growth in that direction. And so one that I'm noticing is number 27. It's mostly a housing resilience project, but it does also establish a community land trust and a process for community to be more involved in land acquisition and processes like that, which also could be helpful for preservation of land and other activities. So I thought that one was pretty strong for the amount requested. It's $91,500. So I thought, you know, that would be a good investment to make for setting up systems that would then further enhance the community.
Great. Thank you, Diana. Yosef, I thought I saw you come off mute. You wanted to add something earlier? No.
Sorry, that was earlier.
Okay, got it. Anyone
Diana,
else?
be careful with that. The total amount they're requesting is over 200,000, not the 91. That's a breakdown.
Sorry,
So
and
just
I
be careful
thought
with that.
only the 91,500 would be eligible for funding. I misspoke there. Apologies.
No worries.
Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong. If we
I think they're asking for the full amount. I guess, I don't know, Jesse, is that something that is next if we say we only want to support a piece of this or not the whole amount?
Well, yeah, I'd have to pull it up. You'd have to go with the total amount in that budget template. So that's what they're asking for when it comes to this proposal. So that budget template attachment, that would be the right number. I don't have that file up right away, but it does come up. So we will, if you elect to fund it, again, we will fund it as many eligible expenses as possible. I will tell you that there are a lot of proposals where they ask for 250 and you read the work plan and they're not pre-development activities. So when we kind of do the contracting phase, it's like, yes, we'll get you as much as we can, but maybe that's only 125 instead of the full 250. So that's it. So we have to look at that total amount. And then even then we'd have to say, well, are these even pre-development activities? And we'll fund to the max amount there. So they could be partially funded, very similar to the question Christina had.
Thank you, Jesse. Other comments or questions before we invite you to, or actually, I wanted to turn it over to Maria before we consider the action, but other observations or points of clarification you want to add?
Yeah, I posted something in the chat too, just so they know that everything's been categorized through the 3 categories: concept, accelerate, last mile. And then Jesse just mentioned the pre-development activities part. So that's something that they want to consider. And then I mentioned this Tuesday at the in-person meeting, if they want to go through, the project impact and equity as they're adding points, which they can do on their own spreadsheet. We're not going to collect those. We won't ask you for those, but if as you're scoring to keep yourself organized, you want to add each application number and how many points you're providing for each, refer to the NOFO, the pages that I mentioned in the chat, and then look at the top line strategies as well. And don't just look at the title of the strategy, but look at the action items that you all voted on a few months ago, a few collaborative meetings ago. So if they say, this is about green innovation or technology or whatever they mention, are they answering the question, where we ask how many will be impacted? I forget the exact question, but look at the question. Did they answer the question thoroughly? So you also want to look at that.
Yeah, and Jesse, you want to comment on the chat comment you just dropped?
Yeah, so just to Maria's point, because she brought the 3 categories. Concept is a much like around 50,000, accelerate around 250, and then last mile 750. So you guys did say you did not want to be bound by these concepts, but we wanted to put them in folders so you weren't necessarily reviewing one proposal at 50 and then the next one 750 and the next one 7, and it kind of sways back and forth. So you guys can opt to do all concept, you can opt to do no concept, but we do want to put those, at least the funding range and what you think you're getting for your dollar amount, at least in the same folders, so you can kind of make those comparisons just a little bit easier.
Great, thank you, Jesse. Okay, final round here, requests for comments, observations. Anybody have any lingering, last minute lingering thoughts?
One quick question. Sorry, I couldn't find my
ahead,
raise hand. But so just to confirm, so I imagine there, and I'm sorry, I also did not review them yet, but the ones in last mile, while they would have submitted for higher amounts, I imagine because it's last mile, many of the costs may not be eligible because of this like pre-development kind of bar for the expenses. Is that like a way to think about it, or is that not accurate?
It doesn't necessarily be, but I could see, because like you're kind of crossing the chasm into implementation at that point. So last mile is supposed to take you up until implementation. But if people kind of misinterpreted that and they started writing implementation, then yes, that could be, then their larger dollar amount would be lessened as far as what we'd actually fund. So I guess not necessarily, but I could see how if you're not going through with a fine tooth comb, that you might add in things that might cross that line.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Final comment or question from one of you? Anyone? Preguntas, comentarios tocante los proyectos o el proceso para seleccionar los proyectos? Okay, well, Maria, let me turn it over to you before we go into the action item to consider opening the poll. Give us a quick overview of the poll and how it's going to work.
Yeah. Okay, so can you see my screen? The poll?
We can.
Perfect. Okay, so you'll want to enter your full name. I would like to record your first and last name, so please make sure you do that. The organization and or if you're a community resident. You'll then see here, so this is what it's going to look like for you. So I'll make sure to send you this link. So you'll select or rank no more than 3 projects that should receive funding from Catalyst Community Enhancing Funds. And then please move your top 3 projects to the top with your highest scored project in first place, your second highest scored project in second place, and your third highest scored project in third place. These are the ranked choices. So first place will receive 5 points, second place 3 points, and third place 1 point. And a reminder that you cannot vote for a project that you or your org is directly involved in, or your ballot becomes invalid. So this entire thing will be thrown out. The poll will close at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday, April 1st, which is why I encourage you all, if you have any questions, send them now over the weekend before 5 p.m. on Tuesday. And then I do want to show you real quick what it looks like on my back end. So this is what it'll look like for me. This I will delete, of course. This is Jesse. So we were kind of just playing around with it behind the scenes just to see what it would pop up. So it'll say something like full name here, which org, and then your ranks. So number one, this is, application, whatever, favorite 010, and then the second one is 012, and then the third one is 021. Again, 5 points for the first one, 3 points for the second one, 1 point for the third one. So this is what it would look like for me. Anyone have any questions?
Maria, I just want to point out a good point on the chat from Jesse. If you have questions about whether you think there's a conflict of interest, maybe not, reach out to Maria and Jesse to ask that specific question about your scenario. But questions
Thank you for that.
questions about the poll and its usability.
Yeah, and I can't see the chat, everyone, because I'm sharing screen. So if you want to come off mute and ask your question, feel free. I can't access the chat at all right now.
Not seeing any questions regarding the poll and the use of it. Anyone want to come off mute? I don't see any hands up either. Any comments or questions? No.
And I'll say the same thing, as you jump into the poll, this isn't until end of day Tuesday. If you jump into the poll and it's confused and the usability is confusing, please contact Maria and I. We want to make sure that you're voting for the project you intend to vote for.
If it's not confusing and it made sense what I shared, can you like it or like thumbs up right now so that I know you're good? If I don't see you thumbs up, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to ask what is confusing so that I can help you. Good. Okay. Thank you. And I see you.
Is the link to the poll already in the email? I don't think I see it in any previous email.
We're getting to that point here in a second, which is a good segue to my invitation for one of you to make a motion and someone else to make a second so that we can have the collaborative approve the release of the poll. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Diana, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Teresa, okay. All those in favor, signal by saying aye or giving us a little thumbs up emoji.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anybody in opposition? Come off mute and say opposition or nay. Anybody who's choosing to abstain, come off mute and say I want to abstain. Okay, looks like the motion carries unanimously. So with that said, the poll will now become live and available to you. And Maria, I'm assuming that part of that will be in the chat and then a follow-up email just to make sure folks have access to it in both ways. So thank you all. You'll get that momentarily. With that, we're going to move on to discussing the other pot of the Catalyst funding that I mentioned earlier. This is the job creating project awardees. And again, as I mentioned earlier, just want to flag here that this particular pot of funding is in complement to the community enhancement pot that you're all now going to be engaging with over the next few days. And it's great that you have both pots of resources because it's really, I think, reflective of the value and the fairness of the work that you've done over the last 2+ years to build this collaborative, and it's reflecting on your values of prioritizing not just the job creating part of this work, but the community enhancement piece too. So excellent work by you all. But this particular pot is aligned with what has become really crystal clear from the state and its economic blueprint, which was released earlier this year. And that's really focused on trying to develop these industry clusters in the different regions of California, including Orange County. But it's also keeping an eye, hasn't fully disregarded the environmental impacts of doing this activity or the economic equity that needs to be considered when building out priority industries for each region, each of the 13 regions in California. And so you'll see elements of that embedded in the projects that were selected for the job creating portion of the Catalyst funding. And as a reminder, all of the applications for this category of funding were shared with you on Monday from Maria. And that was done just in the name of transparency and accountability to make sure you all had a through line to see, what the projects were, and we'll be going over the ones that were selected here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse to give us more detail on the awardees for this portion of the funding.
Yeah, thanks, Ish. And Maria, if you could also drop that folder in the chat as well, just so people can access it since they're here now. So just high level, $6 million, but I will note that's of eligible projects. We received more projects, but because they weren't based on the target industries, they were not scored. So that is to say this number as far as dollars requested would be higher, if not much higher. So that's why what you see here are of the eligible project, which is also why the number of projects is less than the community enhancement projects. But a breakdown of 5 were within either business, specifically a business association or an organization that drives business formation. 3 are probably more, CBOs, but I bring up, just because yourself here, Cielo is an economic development organization. It's a CBO, but it's also, driving business formation and wealth creation. So the 3 are probably more, traditional or narrowly defined CBOs, 7 from workforce and education, because we had a lot of workforce related projects, and then 4 from local government. So you will have the file there. I know that the timelines now are conflicting if you're a little behind reviewing the other projects, but please let us know by end of day Tuesday, because we want to get going in notifying these people and start the contracting process. So please let us know by end of day Tuesday if you have any other suggestions to the list as you review these. But here are the ones that were reviewed by OCBC staff. 4 of us came together with our own scores and had to discuss what we thought were the most impactful projects. And here are the ones that we selected. Again, we are open to your feedback and your input, but ultimately this is OCBC's decision, while the other projects are whatever the scores come out as far as the poll goes. So one of the ones that we thought would be funded was a weatherization training center. This is by Community Action Partnership, Orange County. They eventually want to have a facility that'll do weatherization and healthy home technician apprenticeships. CAPOC, I would say exclusively works with the low-income community, and so would the people kind of in this project. There's an environmental component to this, because this is about kind of making sure homes are kind of weatherized and kind of are most energy efficient. So that's a workforce development program, but in a more kind of green tech space. They have apprenticeship programs, that'll get you at $60,000, which is what we decided was a high enough salary for a good paying job. And then once you're done being an apprentice, they say many of these roles starting salary, I would say, is close to $80,000. So summary of the projects, we have a little bit longer summaries in the folders, but why we liked it, what stood out to us. The apprenticeship component, because that was one of the things that was listed as something we wanted to see more of. This is targeted at disinvested community members, given the populations that CAPOC serves. Obviously, the salary amount definitely meets the threshold of a good paying job. And as I mentioned, kind of it's an environmental workforce development program. So not just a workforce development program, but allowing us to kind of get to the environmental component that was kind of the 3-legged stool of what this work was originally. The next one is a construction pre-apprenticeship. And so it's in South Orange County. It's a high school, but also these ROPs do adult learners. So it wouldn't be just high school age students. The construction, the wages in construction would be enough to qualify as good paying jobs, and the number, because they want to support 200 people a year over 3 years. So that's 600 individuals total when they get to implementation. What did we like about it? The pre-apprenticeship component, again, apprenticeships were something that were highlighted. We have labor present on these calls for a reason. There was one criterium of all the criteria that the collaborative said you absolutely wanted, and that was geographic diversity, which allowed us to say this was probably the best project in our opinion that covered exclusively covered South Orange County. Yes, we have some county-wide ones, but this is exclusively to the South Orange County population. This was the best project we felt in that region, in that part of the county, so we wanted to fund that. Construction industry, when we did a lot of outreach to the community, they said that those would be one of the priority industries because that's where the community is currently. And again, the impact is quite large in our opinion, with 200 people being impacted every year. The next one is a workforce reentry. So it's so that is to support those who are justice involved. There's a lot of other things that go kind of, there's 3 buildings. And so we have to probably talk to them about how we can fund the things that are related to kind of the workforce and economic development component to it. But it's to help move people into kind of the food space, the kind of the restaurant space, the retail space, for those who are justice involved, justice impacted. To one, there's a workforce component, but there's also this ability to kind of produce kind of, you know, food or whatever it is that the retail, whatever it is they're making, and try to sell that as well in a market. So it's trying to turn them into entrepreneurs. So that's one thing that, to be honest, as we look to the next round, we need to try to think more of is how do we get more traditional economic development projects and not just workforce projects, although workforce projects are important. So this had an economic development component. These are people trying to be, you know, be a business owner, be an entrepreneur. So that's why we felt it was strong. And it was obviously very targeted to a disinvested population, maybe not by census tract, but the justice involved was definitely listed in some of the state's requirements. And also, you know, the funding that they're requesting, because it's last mile with $750,000, you know, these buildings are in the several millions, so they clearly have complementary funding and a plan to get to implementation. So we are trying to just expedite that process to get them where they need to go. This next one was, you know, multiple cities want to develop a business community development district for Little Saigon. They're going to try to do all cities do with urban design, streetscape, you know, drive more kind of tourism and business and foot traffic to kind of the Little Saigon area. You know, I think we love Disneyland and the convention center, but how do we kind of get people to kind of our communities? And I think this is the opportunity to kind of highlight something unique really in Orange County, possibly throughout the country, is our strong Vietnamese population. So what did we like about this project? One, it's multi-city. So it's kind of, it's sub-regional in a way. It wasn't just one city. So multiple cities coming together, say we can work together on this. But they were also in the disinvested census tracts per the maps. I think this is true economic development because it's focused on business growth and business formation and not just a workforce piece with economic development. And I think it's you know, it's targeted to, you know, kind of, again, not a story, but it kind of separates Orange County from almost the rest of the country and how strong our Vietnamese population is. We know generally they're kind of a disinvested community, so we felt like it kind of checked a lot of these boxes. It really drove that point home. So we like this project as well. This was the one this is a kind of advanced manufacturing collaborative. This is a workforce piece, but one, it's advanced manufacturing. So we want to balance some of the industries that were there. There was a focus on small and mid-sized manufacturers. So we think about a lot of the narrative about manufacturers leaving, you know, California, in which case that means they're leaving Orange County. It's really the small and mid-sized manufacturers. So how do we kind of keep them here and retain them here? Because those are good paying jobs. This was the one concept phase we really wanted to fund. I think it's no more than $50,000. So if we think about the upside of this work, you know, it's a significant multiple than just the $50,000 investment. And again, back to kind of being geographically diverse, this was kind of one of 2 that was situated in North OC. It's going to be countywide. You know, Cal State Fullerton serves residents of throughout Orange County. Their students are throughout Orange County, if not other counties. But we have to recognize that the physical location is in North Orange County. And so we had to kind of recognize that here. The second one is about Fullerton College. This is the only one funded that has a community college component to it. It's about drones. It's about kind of precision manufacturing. And if we look, you know, as they develop the people into implementation and after they go through the training, you know, the starting salaries are $60,000 to $80,000. And again, I want to underline this as starting salary. So as they continue to work in the industry, their salaries will only go up, which clearly meet the threshold of a good paying job. This was the one primarily focused on advanced manufacturing, precision manufacturing, along with the Cal State Fullerton one. You look at that high starting salary, as I mentioned. You know, we know community colleges, and if we especially think about in North OC, you know, those are disproportionately serving disinvested communities. They even said in their proposal that their goal is to serve 50% of all participants through this program. So of the 150 should be from disinvested communities. And again, it's a North OC project. And I think this is our last one, is Childcare Business Incubator. They've seen Cielo has had some success with kind of their first phase. Again, 36 people have actually received their license to operate a childcare, and they've calculated about 400 new childcare slots have already been opened from this work. They want to kind of accelerate this further. Again, I don't want to do Josefa's description disservice, but they're trying to kind of create this network and be more of a backbone organization so more of this can happen. So this is why it still would be pre-development. And so what do we like about it? Economic development, business formation, right? It is economic development. You're talking about people becoming business owners. It's focused on childcare, which was, of course, a priority industry and something that's been surfaced a lot because childcare is not only important, but then it enables people to get back into the workforce, right? So it kind of has, again, it's a multiplier effect in that regard. So that's why we thought it was critically important. And Cielo's work is focused on disinvested populations and the disinvested communities. And they really are all over the county. And so that's why, there were maybe other childcare projects, which is helpful to have more childcare in Santa Ana. But if you're, living in a disinvested community in Fullerton or Buena Park, that may not work for you. And so the fact that Cielo kind of is all over the county trying to develop these, it could provide more slots. Well, one is it allows people to be business owners, but then it provides more childcare slots for people throughout the county as well. So those are the projects. I just want to talk about kind of what's next. As I mentioned, we will fund up to the max amount of those pre-development activities and as much as it relates to the priority sectors, as much as possible, that we will then open up the remaining 6 million. I think we wanted to do 2 rounds, but to be honest, the way that, given the amount of how it was oversubscribed, and given that we want to give people as much time as possible to even do these pre-development activities because they have to be spent by September 2026, that more time is better. So expect the next NOFO to be a full 6 million broken down by community enhancing and job creating. And as Ish said, all applicants, win or lose, are able to reapply. But of course, we welcome, and we will do this in our outreach, we welcome for people to come to us and receive feedback on their proposals if they want to kind of improve them further. So even if you win and you want to kind of build upon your pre-development, if you were accelerate and somehow you can get that done and get to last mile and it's a quality project, we could fund that. Or if you didn't win and you improve your proposal, well, you can get funded again, or you can get funded this time and hopefully move your project along. So with that, are there any kind of questions or discussions about the projects that OCBC, let's say I won't use the word recommends, but this is what we propose to you. We'll take your feedback and deliberate internally if we want to proceed and finalize that list.
Great, thank you, Jesse.
I'll stop here, but I can go back to the projects if people have any questions.
Feedback, comments, questions? Who'd like to get us started here? Any observations? Or if you thought the selection of the cohort of awardees is good, you can also just say that, like, hey, it's a good representation, the county, across sectors, across needs. That's welcomed feedback as well. Go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, so the ones that you just mentioned, Jesse, are those ones that you guys selected internally, or was there a vote on that previously?
No, that's so the process of the job creating is primarily decided by OCBC with notification and consultation with the collaborative versus an open poll. So those are the selections that OCBC decided I want to present to you for confirmation.
I'll say I think these are really good selections. They're very representative, and I did a really great job, Jesse and team, in representing, I think, all the conversations and what's going to help OC at a really high level. One question I had, I don't know if you can answer this or not, is I'm just curious. I've looked at some of the other applications, but were there any themes of the applications that maybe didn't meet the criteria? Like, for example, I'll just say, again, just glancing and being familiar, it seemed like there were some programs around like individual mentorship, or then I saw a few on like incubation of entrepreneurship. I don't know if there were any like themes of the ones that maybe just didn't quite hit the mark, not because they're not good projects, but because, right, like the way that programs are set up. So I don't know if you have any comments on something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Probably a much longer debrief. Well, one is there was, it's quite a few amount that weren't eligible. Like they just didn't read about the priority sector. So in those regard, right, those. And no, as far as those, I think, when we do the scoring, like there's a lot that are, I feel like 2 points away could have been the top. So I don't know, right? So like I think some of those things are industry focused, geographic diversity. Some might have had a higher impact number than others. And again, by the individual proposals, some could do really well in one and maybe less so in others. I think it's probably, yeah. So I don't want to say there's a general theme, but I would say like there are definitely other strong projects that had we had more funding available, we would have liked to fund. But this is where like I think we will definitely make ourselves open because there's another round that people can apply for that we would like to provide that feedback to improve. One I think that might come out to kind of is that I think there was a lack of a targeted approach to these industries. Right, like the more you can be specific in the industry and the impact, then the better I think that as a general would have been. And I think a lot of the ones we funded were very clear in the number impacted and which industries they were going to be in.
Okay, great. Thank you. But no, these look really good. So thanks for all that.
And I'm seeing some comments in the chat just with affirmations of good selections. So just to add to Jasmine's comments. Other questions or comments about the content Jesse just provided? Otherwise, I'll just remind you all, if there's any additional feedback and input you want to give Jesse and Maria and the OCBC team on the summary of these projects and the merits, just do that before the end of the day on Tuesday, April 1st. Just, you can give them a call or send them an email to give them your 2 cents. But we are up against time. So thank you, Jesse, for that. I want to give some minutes to invite the collaborative, all of you, to make any comments or updates or announcements about things that we haven't spoken about today here this morning, and or on things that are going on in the community there in Orange County that you want to bring to the attention of your peers, upcoming events, things of that nature. Anybody want to offer any announcements or questions or comments?
Ish, I'll drop it in the chat, but earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, many might have seen the Orange County Needs report that came out by from Samueli Foundation. And I think it's good for us to socialize that with philanthropy who sort of don't see philanthropy in the same way. And I think they did a good job of deepening their understanding of the issues through engaging with leaders like those around this room. So I'll pull that and drop it in the chat for those that didn't see it.
That's great, Yosef. A wonderful resource to share with your peers here. So thank you. Any other information relevant to this group that one of you wants to share, or upcoming events that you want to invite your peers to consider joining? And I see it now in the chat. Thanks, Yosefa. Comments? Closing thoughts? All right. Well, if one of you does want to come off mute or raise your hand, please do. But I do want to just remind you all that the next collaborative meeting will be virtual, and it's scheduled for Friday, May 30th at 9 a.m. So this is in alignment with our desire to do it every other month. So Friday, May 30th, 9 a.m. is the next meeting. If for some reason you don't have the calendar invite on your schedule, please reach out to Maria and connect with her to so we can rectify and make sure that you've got the information you need to attend the next meeting. But with that, I'll do one last call for comments or closing thoughts from any of you. Jesse, Maria, I also want to invite you to share some last parting words of wisdom for the group here.
Just reach out, please, if you have questions. I'm always accessible and available. So please email me, and then I'll hop on a call with you if you need a call.
And
give me some time to get to the office for those summaries. I'll compile them and then send you the link that they're all in one folder.
Thank you, Maria. Jesse?
No, just thank you, everyone. We've been kind of doing this work for 2 years. We've developed, those great regional plans, but I think like anything, I think people are always more excited about getting work done kind of in the community, in the field. I think this is the first step of funding, we just sent you the job creating, but you're going to go into community enhancing things that'll really have an impact. So thank you for your patience and commitment to this work. And I think we're at a point where now it's starting to pay off and bear some fruit.
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, April, absolutely. You all should give yourselves a round of applause. You have gotten to a really important milestone in this process with the distribution of resources out into the field. So just to echo Jesse's comments, you should all feel very proud and reflected in the 2 years plus of this work and seeing the fruits of your labor now, playing out and sharing some of these resources with each other. And so with that, just a quick reminder to spend time with that poll. If you have questions about any potential conflict that you may perceive, don't hesitate. It's better to play it safe than sorrow. Reach out to Maria or Jesse to talk about it, and then clear the air. And if you have questions on the poll itself, if you encounter a glitch, just reach out to Maria. But do make sure to complete that poll by Tuesday. And again, refrain from selecting projects that you or your organization are involved with, so your ballot does not become invalid. But any questions, just make that phone call, send that email before you complete and push submit. So with that, I wish you all a great weekend. Happy Cesar Chavez holiday, which is being observed on the 31st, which is Monday. Hope you all have a great weekend. We hope to see you soon, and definitely in May 30th at 9 a.m. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. And congrats on achieving the milestones.